Hope you're having a good Valentine's weekend. Even though Valentine's Day officially starts tomorrow, which is a Monday, which isn't part of a weekend. People have to go to work. Hi, welcome to the Fight of the Night review. I should probably use that more annually because, I don't know, I just thought it was kind of funny. But yeah, we have Fight of the Night to go over. We're in the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas, United States. And it's on the early prelims between Silva De Andrade and Sergey Morozov, so let's just talk about it. There's really not a lot to talk about, spoiler alert, so we'll get through this one pretty quick. So the fight starts and both men have, the obvious filling out process. They're both sort of lunging at each other with some good jabs. Douglas lands the first, pretty big strike of the fight with a solid calf kick. And then Morozov starts going off. He manages to uncork a left, which does down Douglas, and then he follows that with a good left right combo, which knocks down Douglas really bad. And then, for the next 3 or so minutes, Sergey lays on top of Douglas, keeps him on the ground, does not do a lot, lands an elbow, opens a cut on the side of Douglas's eye, which thankfully goes the blood thankfully goes this way and not this way, because if it went this way that would have been bad. And not much happens besides that. Douglas eventually gets up. He does manage to fight back with some pretty good strikes of his own, although Sergey lands a really nice combo which is like spinning back fist followed by a left body kick, which I thought was pretty sick to see. But yeah, round one, surprisingly not a lot happened besides that big knockdown and just Sergey mostly laying on top of Douglas, improving position whenever he could and opening it up with the elbow. Having said that though, round one goes to Sergey. Obvious reasons. Hit Douglas really hard early on, knocked him down, stayed on top of him for a big chunk of this round. And even when they got back up, he was still sort of controlling on the feet. So yeah, not really a lot to talk about. Not much happened except for the first minute and a half-ish, if that. So we're just going to move on to round two. I would apologise, but that's exactly what happened. We then move on to round two, and sadly the cut man could not fully close the cuts on Douglas's head, and this is when commentary, which was hoisted by, I think, John Anik, Daniel Cormier and Michael Bisping. Cormier pointed out that in boxing, there's a lot more care put into the fighter's face whenever they're cut open, not so much in MMA, and I thought, that's actually a good point. Cormier always makes good points, but even then I was like, no, dude's actually right. They should probably put more care into covering up the cuts because blood loss is a nasty thing, and the cut that opened up Douglas's eye, the elbow that opened the cut on Douglas's eye was really nasty. I should actually talk about round two now. So, round two, Douglas is looking still a bit wobbly on his feet, but he does manage to recover really well and opens with a really nice left hook, right overhand combo. He lands this a good couple of times and eventually manages to knock Sergey down. Sergey does try and stay in it. He does manage to avoid a nasty ground situation where he's knocked down the first time because Douglas sort of overshoots a shot. He overshoots a punch and it allows Sergey to roll around, slip through and manage to get back to his feet. He does go for a couple of takedowns to Sergey, but Douglas is catching them. He's a bit more aware. He does eventually Sergey manages to start pushing Douglas against the cage after a really good Muay Thai roll around where Douglas eventually gets Sergey's head and lands a really good couple of knees, but Sergey pushes Douglas against the cage out of desperation. Douglas lands another knee and a really nice elbow of his own, so getting Sergey back for what he did to him in round one. And he follows up with some ground strikes and immediately takes us back. And commentary immediately sees this as a bad thing because in Douglas's entire career, over 27 wins, he's only had 1 by submission. 20 by KO TKO, 6 by decision, so dude can finish, but yeah, no one was really thinking this was a good idea for him, especially because Sergey is the stronger person on the ground. But eventually, Douglas, after some fighting, managed to sink in a rear naked choke, and Sergey held onto the wrist as long as he could. Did not tap. I will give Sergey credit, he did not tap. He went out, his eyes rolled back in his head, and the referee called the fight off at the right time. Kerry Hatley did a really good job refereeing in this fight. Oh, there was a moment too in round two as well, where, by the way, the fight's over, but I'll get to the ending in a little bit. But there was a moment where Sergey did accidentally thumb Douglas in the eye, which caused the action to be stopped, and that was a weird moment as well, because that allowed Douglas to get another knockdown on Sergey. But then, shortly after that, I talked about the lead up to the finish, and we got the finish in round two, so we have to talk about it now. I'll admit, there was a lot of crazy shit in round two that I didn't go over, but I think most of it was just because I was bored by round one. The opening was pretty exciting, but then almost nothing happened throughout almost half of the entire fight's lasting length. It's very weird when it plays out like that, but in round two, Douglas, he managed to get back on his feet really well, landed some really good strikes, was countering a little bit better, There was a really great moment where he just did like a Chris Lieben style zombie walk and started smashing Sergey. You know, yeah, despite the thumb to the eye cutting things off in the fight, which is always a disappointment to see, he managed to come back really well. Got a solid submission, and again, I can always appreciate it when someone doesn't tap, although I only appreciate it when it comes to chokeholds, because, oh god, if you don't tap when you've got like a leg or an arm in trouble, you're going to lose that limb. That will severely inhibit your ability to fight because you sort of need that to punch or kick, depending on which limb it is. So, yeah, this fight, right, it was okay, wasn't it? It was alright. You know, compared to like the last few fight nights, which were absolutely amazing, this one, not so much. I don't know if it's just because it was a mid-fight finish, you know? I don't know if it was just because it felt too one-sided in round 1 and then too one-sided in round 2 to Sergey and Douglas, respectively. I don't know if it was just sort of took me out of it. Even with the fact that this was like a proper number pay-per-view where they were allowed to get a proper crowd, even though it was early prelims, I mean, this was only the third fight overall in the card, like the halfway point of the early prelims, there was still a big enough crowd to give it some welly, you know? But yeah, I don't know, this fight didn't super sit well with me. It's okay, I do recommend checking it out, but it's not going in my top 10 of the year. The fight was a bit too... The finish was a bit unearned, in my opinion. But Sergey did make a pretty astonishing statement for the first time I've seen him fight in the UFC. And Douglas, he's always pretty reliable. I've seen him in a couple of fights. He is always fun to watch. So, yeah, dude can still go. And Sergey did a really good job. Wasn't enough to get in the win. So that'll about do it for another review. I know it really wasn't a lot to talk about. But then again, this fight wasn't particularly long. I think if it had gone like the third round and then ended there, I would give it more of the benefit of the doubt. But it's still a decent fight. I'd recommend checking it out. Maybe once or twice. But yeah, round 1 just sort of drained it out of me. For some reason, like, it was just kind of a slog at points. And then round 2 really kicked things off. But I think it ended too quick. I don't know. It was just a bit sloppily paced. But Douglas mounting the comeback was really fun to see. And I do like to see that in the UFC. I like to see it when it's a bit more even. You know, I feel like this was a bit too heavy on one side than heavy on the other, as I've stated before. But yeah, I can't really think of much else to say. I will see you all soon for another episode of Music of the Week. Before that, PBW versus AVW, the midway point show. And then Music of the Week after that, and probably next Let's Play. Because I finished Resident Evil 7 one, I've got to finish editing that and put that up on YouTube. But the next Let's Play, which will be... Here's the announcement. It's going to be Bulletstorm. I was debating if it should be another first-person shooter, but Resident Evil 7 was more a survival horror game where you just happen to have a gun. Bulletstorm is just a silly, stupid blaster of a game, so that's the next one I'm going to play, and I'll see you all for that, and for PBW vs AVW, and for Music of the Week. Yeah, that'll about do it. As always, thank you for watching. You're awesome. Bye-bye.